Hey, Mr. J. So you sent me these two images, and you told me that you were still getting into ZBrush, and that's fine. If you saw the things that I made when I just got into ZBrush, well, let's just say I'm glad I don't have those files around anymore, so no one can see them. Anyway, you don't actually need to know a lot of stuff in ZBrush just to make something interesting. So what I would suggest, because you told me you're trying to make this futuristic samurai kind of look, but that you sort of went too far towards the alien side of things. So to fix this, there's a few suggestions I would make. Let me actually subdivide this. Oh yeah, I didn't want to bother you asking you to send over your OBJ or anything, so I sort of remade this very quickly. So let me subdivide this once. And first thing I would suggest is stay away from a lot of wavy lines. So it's okay to have curves and stuff like that, but if you just go back and forth too much, that immediately looks like something organic, and that can be mistaken with alien. Like if you just added a few more wavy lines like that, I would have thought that, actually I did think that you were making some sort of warframe at first. Anyway, so first stay away from lots of wavy lines. Curves are okay, just don't overdo it. Also, try to keep your mesh a little bit lower resolution, and you'll see why in a second. For obvious reasons, it's just a little bit easier to work with, but there's more to it than that. And another suggestion I would make is to look for those human elements first, because right here, if you didn't show me this image with the character down below, I never would have guessed this was a human. So what I mean by human elements is, let's actually remove some of this that I have. So Sculptris Pro, make my brush really big, and then just shift and smooth it down. There we go. Let me turn Sculptris Pro off, and I'm gonna try not to use my menus for this. So Dynamesh, let's turn on Dynamesh, and let's undo that. Let's turn it a little bit higher. Turn it on. Okay, there we go. So what I would suggest you do is you start finding those human elements. So right here, I kept my human base mesh, and it doesn't matter if the helmet doesn't fit perfectly. So if we press Control T, we can get like a transparent view. So we're not looking for the perfect fit. We're just trying to get some of those elements that I keep repeating and mentioning. For instance, I want maybe a little bit of a forehead, and then maybe let's fix the chin. I also want a little bit of a chin, something like this. And maybe bring this down and maybe pull out the back a little bit, and we can just say, oh, it has some battery pack there. So definitely think about function a little bit, but don't let it like constrain you. So let's actually fix this in the front view as well. Like I said, I'm not looking for the perfect fit, I'm just looking for something that can remind us that this actually has a human inside. So let's give it a little bit of cheeks. So we have something like this, and we can start thinking, well, maybe what we probably want this character is a visor, right? So let's start with that. Let's just create a very simple visor here. Something like this, and just sort of hint at it. And it's okay to keep our mesh really, really low resolution, as long as you can actually. Maybe give it more of an interesting shape. And then maybe we also need a hint of a mouth or something, a mouthpiece, or some sort of breathing apparatus. So let's go back here, and then we also have the jaw. So I'm basically just replicating what a normal human has, a little. Of course, it's a little bit dirty, not quite human yet, but as long as we have those. So we have something like this. And let me switch to the standard brush, because that's very good at adding and removing volume. Just looking for some of that human shape in there. Looks pretty goofy, but I mean, that's how everything starts. So we might want to start thinking, well, maybe this character also needs some eyes as well. Maybe this is not just a visor, this is just like the front piece, and we actually need some eyes. So let me draw those in very quickly. Something simple. So I just hint at stuff right now. We don't need a super clean detail yet. So here we have a kind of like a little slit for an eye. And then maybe I do something very cheesy where, let me subdivide this once with Control D, where I just add teeth to everything. And I don't know. I know why I do that. I just like doing that. Maybe it's some childhood trauma. Maybe it's when I got braces when I was young, and I got braces both top and bottom teeth, and I couldn't eat because they hurt. Yeah, that's maybe where it comes from. But yeah, that always seems to work as well. So we have our jaw. And then now that we have some of those human elements, we can also start thinking, you know, what kind of shapes are we looking for? Are we looking for really rounded out shapes, or do we want something that's a little bit more angular? So let me grab Dem standard, then just make line right here. Maybe split this here, and let's grab the H polish brush and hold on Alt to get the reverse effect sometimes. Press down, sometimes with Alt. Polish out some of these areas. And like I said, your mesh is gonna look really bad at first, and it's fine. You wanna keep it as low as possible for as long as you can, and just work on all the proportions first, and just hint at stuff. We don't want to turn up the resolution too high, because it's gonna feel like you're adding a lot of detail when you do that, but it's gonna be very hard to find new shapes. So keep it super low, as long as you can. Don't worry about getting really clean details yet. Maybe he has 4 eyes instead of just 2. Cool. Let's actually fix this a little bit. Just work on the proportions for a while. Don't be rushed into detailing. That's one of the best advices I can give for anyone that's new to ZBrush. So here I feel like I'm sort of happy with what I've hinted at, and I think it's okay to just Control D and get a little bit extra resolution. And let me actually delete them because Dynamesh is not going to work with those. So let's do something like what you did right here. I'm actually a big fan of creating really alien designs and then saying there's a human inside. But like I said, we do need those human elements. So let's actually use snake hook instead. So let's pull this out. Let's bring some of this back up. So I did something very similar to what you had, but notice that just because we now have those human elements, it's just not as alien as it was before. So let me Dynamesh, and let's use a 600 this time. And like I said, do we want really rounded out shapes? Do we want hard angles? So let's look for some of those. And this is why I like to keep my resolution really low, because you eventually start seeing shapes that weren't there before, you know, in the mess. Kind of like when you look up at the clouds and you see stuff there. So same thing. So we start seeing shapes here that we didn't have before. We can start adding smaller and smaller stuff. And it's not really about just filling everything with details. It's just about I recommend adding details in places where things meet. So here we have the visor meets with the rest of the head. So this is where we add the eyes. Something like that. And the head is showing through. So let me grab the move brush and then just pull this back out. And what else can we do? We can make these like antlers or antennas more interesting by just breaking up the shape. something like that. Just grabbed a NAM standard brush just to highlight some of those edges, and I'm still not looking for the cleanest mesh possible. Still just hinting at a lot of stuff. And pro tip. When you're looking for details, the letter H works really well. And so not the like perfect H, but you can improve this, for instance, by maybe doing something like this, right? And then we can also add some thickness to it. So something like this. And then we can also improve that by adding tapers. So we'll do this. So letter H always works when you're trying to look for details. Let me actually get rid of that subdivision because, like I said, I don't want to rush it. And I'm not really going to do a full helmet right now, but I just wanted to like make a point that as long as you have a few of those human elements there, then you can start adjusting them and making them really, really crazy. Like we can pull out those eyes super far back, and we still sort of see that human aspect. So we can start doing those more crazy alien kind of stuff if we first find the human first. I don't know how else to describe it. Oh, and another thing we can do, which I really like doing, is actually let me fill this with white. So grab my color brush, or you can just grab the standard brush and turn off Z add and Z sub, and then turn on RGB. That's basically what I did for this color brush. And then make sure it's white and fill the object with white. Perfect. And now I can set this to be darker, and I can paint darker values. This is probably too dark. Paint in some darker values, and I can start looking for some shapes this way. And this is also very non-destructive because I can always just switch these colors. So how do I switch these? I forgot. I think it's X. No, V. Oh yeah, with V. And set this one to be white. So if I paint normally, I'll get the white color, and if I hold down Alt, I'll get the darker one. So that's how we can actually very quickly look for shapes without actually disturbing the mesh. You can do something like that. And in my UI, I'm pretty sure I shared it. Hopefully I did. I actually have a button that you can mask an area. And then if you run, let me just make sure I'm using white. If you run this iGlow button, it will automatically assign that like glowing color. Oops, I only added to one side. Mirror and weld. Oh yeah, I forget. Mirror and weld, you can find it in modified topology, mirror and weld. And if it's welding the wrong way, then click, where's mirror? I forget what this is. This is why I definitely recommend having a custom UI. Mirror, and then mirror and weld. And then turn on symmetry with X. Cool. Anyway, just to summarize, I'm not trying to say this is exactly what your helmet should look like. Just wanted to share some of my thought process so that maybe you can apply that and create your own design. And also avoid lots of squiggly lines, and don't just fill everything with detail. You didn't really do that, but just want to throw it out there just in case. So don't try to add detail everywhere, because it's gonna look cool first, but then it's gonna just be really hard to look at. So try to lean your details more towards the edges where the big shapes are connecting with each other. And what else? Oh yeah, look for those human traits, and after you do that, you can start stretching them out and doing crazier things. And also, oh yeah, similar with the H shape, there's another shape that works a lot of the time, and it's called the penis shape. And I'm not even kidding. So when you draw, let's say if you make a perfect square, that's like super boring. So the way you make that more interesting is by turning it into a rectangle instead, right? But you can make that even more interesting by adding a little bit of a taper. And I think you can see where we're going with this. So if you round that out, and let's actually look for an example that's not so isolated. I'd be surprised if I don't have any penises in here. I guess here's one. Here's like sort of giant one, a really weird looking one. But I should probably edit all of this out later, but we'll see. So maybe we can add one right here. Totally, it just works every time. Yeah, just be careful with that one though, because don't want to make it too obvious. Oh yeah, and keep your mesh lower resolution. Don't try to avoid going into details and polishing too early on, because that's like a really it's a noob trap. I don't want to call you a noob or anything, but it is a noob trap. So be careful with that.